The steel bolt of my carbine was frozen solid. When I pulled it back, it didn't click. It just ground against the ice inside the receiver, a sluggish, metallic scrape that made my stomach turn. Above me, the pine canopy was screaming. The German mortar rounds did not hit the forest floor. They detonated 40 feet up in the old, thick branches of the pine trees. Each explosion showered our shallow trench with thousands of sharp wooden splinters mixed with hot iron shrapnel. It was December, and the Hürtgen Forest was swallowing us whole. I huddled in the wet earth, pressing my helmet against the dirt wall of the Foxhole, while Sergeant Max screamed into the dark. Pip was next to me, his teeth rattling so loud I could hear them over the wind. We were rookies, green replacements from the plains of Nebraska, thrown into a dark green twilight where the sun never reached. We had arrived only 2 days before, packed into the backs of open canvas trucks that smelled of diesel, wet wool, and old sweat. The journey from the staging area in Luxembourg had been a slow, bone-jarring crawl through a gray landscape that seemed to drain the color from everything it touched. The road was a ribbon of deep slush, thrown up in dirty sheets by the tires of the convoy. We sat in silence, packed so tightly together that our knees knocked against each other with every rut. Nobody spoke. The excitement of crossing the German border had died hours ago, replaced by a heavy dread that settled in our chests. By the time the convoy ground to a halt at the edge of the tree line, my toes had lost all feeling inside my leather boots. The driver of our truck, a corporal from the 4th Division whose face was caked in dried mud and grease, refused to go a single yard further. He shut off the engine, the sudden silence of the motor leaving us with only the low, distant rumble of artillery bouncing off the hills. He climbed down from the cab, his boots slamming into the wet slush with a heavy thud, and lit a half-crumbled cigarette. He didn't look at us as we clutched our rifles and prepared to unload. "This is as far as the canvas goes, boys," he said, his voice flat and empty, pointing his thumb toward the dark wall of pines rising before us. "From here, you walk, and if you have any sense, you'll keep your eyes on the treetops, not the ground." Stepping off the truck, our joints stiff and cracking, we entered the forest. The towering pines of the Hürtgen Forest rose up around us like the black pillars of some ancient ruined temple, blocking out the light of the midday sun. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of damp earth and decaying needles. As we unloaded, our boots sank into a mixture of wet clay and rotted vegetation that clung to our soles like lead. Almost immediately, the men we were replacing began to crawl out of the tree line. They did not look like the soldiers we had seen in the training camps. They looked like ghosts. Their field jackets were shredded, their trousers caked in mud. Their faces were hollowed out by hunger, their skin a pale, waxy yellow. But it was their eyes that stopped me cold. They were wide, blank, and staring at nothing, reflecting a permanent exhaustion that none of us had ever seen before. They did not look at us as they passed. None of them spoke. They just climbed onto the trucks we had just vacated, moving with the sluggish, mechanical motions of old men. They sat in the back of the vehicles, staring straight ahead, waiting to be taken away from the trees. My father had given me a small leather-bound diary before I boarded the train in Lincoln, telling me to write down the names of the places we crossed so I wouldn't lose my way back. Inside the cover, I had taped a photograph of our farmhouse in Nebraska, surrounded by endless fields of yellow corn under a wide, blue sky. Looking at it was the only way to remind myself that a world without trees still existed. I wanted to write, to record the transition into this green tomb, but my fingers were too stiff. We took over their holes. Sergeant Mack, A veteran with deep, tired lines etched into his face walked the line of our squad. His frayed wool overcoat was buttoned up to his chin, and a grease-stained wool scarf was wrapped tightly around his neck. He kicked the edge of a shallow foxhole, his boot striking hard, frozen earth just a few inches below the mud. He looked down at Pip and me, his eyes cold and empty under the brim of his dirty M1 helmet. "Dig it deeper," Mac growled, his voice hoarse from the cold, "and build a timber roof over your heads. If the Krauts start throwing 88s into the canopy, you'll want more than a steel pot between you and the splinters." But digging was a nightmare. The earth was frozen like concrete. Every swing of the heavy entrenching tool sent a stinging electric shock up my arms, vibrating through my joints and leaving my hands blistered. The roots of the massive pines were everywhere, thick and tangled in the dirt like buried cables. Pip was struggling, the tool slipping from his weak grasp and clattering against the stones. His hands were covered in painful open blisters, and I could see the panic rising in his eyes. "I can't do it, Leo," he whispered, his voice cracking. "The shovel won't bite. My hands won't close." I looked at the shallow hole, then at the thick pine logs that the previous squad had left near the trail. There was only enough timber to build a proper reinforced roof over one half of the foxhole. The other half would remain exposed to the open sky. I made my decision, dragging the heavy logs across the mud to lay them over the side where Pip would sleep. "Get in the covered side, Pip," I said, forcing a calm tone. "I'll take the open end. I can watch the tree line better from there anyway." Pip looked at the heavy logs, but the tree bursts. "Leo, Max said they'd detonate above. Just get in," I repeated, swinging the entrenching tool back into the hard earth. By late afternoon, the hole reached our waists. To our left, Preacher was sitting on a dry log, quietly singing an old Christmas hymn, his voice a low, raspy murmur that barely carried over the sighing of the wind. 14 days till Christmas, Leo," Pip whispered, his eyes watching the white smoke of his own breath. Back home, my mother would be getting the dry corn husks ready for the fire, and my sisters would be hanging the red ribbons on the porch. The kitchen would smell of cinnamon and baked apples. I forced a small smile. "We had an old hound dog named Barnaby," I said, my voice quiet. "Every winter when the snow covered the Nebraska plains, he'd sleep right in front of the wood stove. He got so hot his fur smelled like burnt grass, but he wouldn't budge an inch. The kitchen always smelled of hot coffee and fresh bread. We'll get back there, Pip. Just keep your head down." The night was a long descent into silence. The forest was dead, save for the wind groaning through the high branches. We huddled together in the bottom of our shallow hole, sharing what little warmth remained in our wool uniforms. Then came the morning of December 11th. The silence was shattered without warning by a high-pitched screaming whistle that tore through the air directly above us. It was a sound that made my chest tighten. "Get down!" Sergeant Max screamed from the adjacent hole. "Tree bursts. Get down!" I threw myself into the exposed side of our hole, my face pressed into the wet dirt, my hands clawing at the frozen roots. An instant later, the world exploded. It was a sharp, wooden crack, like 1,000 oaks snapping in half at the same moment. The German mortar shells detonated in the canopy. The blast wave slammed into our hole, a hot, deafening pressure that knocked the breath from my lungs. The air turned black, choked with cordite smoke, pulverized needles, and a thick cloud of dry wood dust that made my eyes burn. A rain of sharp wooden splinters, ranging from tiny needles to massive branches, showered down. They hummed through the air like angry hornets, slicing through the pine trunks with a wet, tearing sound. A massive pine branch crashed down across the edge of our foxhole, burying my legs under a pile of pine needles and heavy wood. I gasped, struggling to move, my mind spinning in a panic. But above me, the heavy timber roof I had built over Pip's side held firm, deflecting a massive shard of wood that would have crushed him. "Brooks, Pip, you alive?" Mac's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. He was coughing, his voice raspy from the smoke. Kicking free of the branches, I brushed the dirt from my helmet. "I'm here," I called out, my voice high. "I'm okay. Pip, are you hit?" Pip crawled out from beneath the timber roof, his face covered in a layer of gray wood dust, his eyes wide, staring at the shattered branches above us. "I want to go home, Leo," he whispered, his voice shaking like a child's. I looked up through the smoke. The dense green canopy that had sheltered us the day before was gone. In its place was a jagged, blackened ruin of shattered trunks, silhouetted against a cold sky. The twilight of the forest had been broken, replaced by a harsh, gray light that revealed the true horror of the trap we were in. And we had only just arrived. December 11th, 1944. The first barrage has passed. The timber roof held, and Pip is safe. But the trees are gone now. There is only a jagged black ruin above us, and the sky is a flat, freezing gray. We are waiting in the mud, waiting for whatever comes next. The freeze settled in by the second night, bringing a heavy quiet to the Hürtgen Forest. The temperature plummeted, and the moisture that had soaked into our boots during the day turned to solid ice inside the wool. Every movement was a struggle against stiff fabric and aching joints. We sat in the dark. Lighting a fire was out of the question. The Germans had observers on the ridges, and even the faint scratch of a match or the thin wisp of wood smoke would draw a mortar barrage within minutes. So we sat in the dark, listening to the dry snap of pine twigs under the weight of the snow. Rations had congealed into cold blocks of grease. The K-ration tins were so cold that we couldn't get the lids peeled back without our fingers slipping on the metal. When we finally managed to open them, the pork and egg mixture had separated, leaving a thick layer of white lard on the top. We had to tuck the tins inside our shirts, pressing the cold metal against our bare skin, just to let our body heat soften the grease. My toes had gone completely numb, a heavy, lifeless sensation that made walking feel like stepping on blocks of wood. Pip sat in the corner of the foxhole, scraping the congealed grease from his tin with a small wooden splinter. He looked at it for a long moment before putting it in his mouth, his shoulders dropping. "I can still smell them, Leo," Pip said, his voice flat and thin. "The apples, in the kitchen. My mother, she used to leave the pies on the sill. You could smell them from the road. I want to go home, Leo." Nodding in agreement, I scraped my own tin. "We'll get back to the orchards, Pip," I said. "Nebraska's got the best apples in the Midwest." Across our draw, Sergeant Mac was huddled under his shelter half, trying to strike a match. It snapped in half between his cold fingers. He threw the pieces into the mud, swearing under his breath. "Damn matches are damp as the draw," Mac muttered, tucking a cold, unlit cigarette back behind his ear. "Everything in this forest is half rotted or frozen solid." Early on the third morning, before the fog had even begun to rise from the draws, a thin, glinting thread caught my eye, stretched across the narrow gap between two low pine saplings, just 10 feet from the edge of our foxhole. It was a tripwire, half buried under a fresh dust of snow. The wire led back to a German grenade taped to a thick root, its safety pin partially pulled. Dragging myself out on my stomach, I moved through the slush, "Brooks, watch the tension," Sergeant Mack whispered from his hole, his voice low and steady. "If you snap it without holding the pin side, the spring will throw the handle before you can slide back." Kneeling in the mud, my breath rising in short, white puffs, I prepared the cut. I had to slide a small wooden splinter into the pin loop to keep the striker from releasing. My fingers were numb, lacking any sense of touch. Every time I tried to align the splinter with the tiny metal hole, my hand jerked. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, a loud, throbbing beat that seemed to fill the forest. After what felt like hours, the splinter slid home. I snipped the wire with a dull click. I collapsed back against the dirt wall of our trench, my forehead covered in sweat despite the freezing air. The tension was constant, a slow wearing away of our nerves that left us exhausted before the shooting even started. But Pip couldn't stand the pain anymore. During the long hours of the third night, he crawled into the corner of the Foxhole and began to untie his stiff laces, using his teeth to loosen the frozen knots. Shining the shielded flashlight through my fingers, I examined his foot. It was pale, stiff, and completely white, showing the severe damage of the winter draw. Pip stared at it in quiet, desperate worry, weeping silently. "I can't feel them, Leo," he whispered, his teeth chattering. "I can't feel my toes at all." My own toes were burning with a dull, throbbing ache, and my limbs were stiff. The constant crying from Pip began to wear on my tired nerves. I felt a sudden hot flash of anger cut through my exhaustion. "Shut up, Pip. Just shut up," I snapped, my voice harsh and tight. "Shivering won't fix your feet. You think I want to be in this hole listening to you cry?" Pip froze, his eyes wide in the dim light. He slowly pulled his foot back under his coat, his lips trembling, but he didn't say another word. The silence that followed was suffocating. Looking at the wall of the trench, a deep, burning guilt settled in my chest. He was my friend, and I had yelled at him because I was tired. The remorse was a physical weight, heavier than the mud on my boots. Looking over the edge of our trench, I saw a dark shape half buried in the snow 50 yards away, near the base of a shattered pine tree. It was a German soldier, killed during the initial skirmish. He was wearing a heavy wool greatcoat, and around his neck was a thick, dark scarf. His boots looked dry against the white ground. Sergeant Mack crawled over from his hole, his face grim. "Don't do it, Brooks," he whispered. "The Krauts have that draw zeroed in, and that field is likely full of shoe mines." But Pip was now leaning his head against the dirt wall, his breathing shallow. I had to fix this. I couldn't let him freeze after what I said. "I have to go, Sarge," I said. Sliding over the edge of the foxhole, I pressed my chest against the snow and began to crawl, dragging myself forward with my elbows. Every yard took an eternity. The forest was silent, but every time my boots scraped a root or a branch cracked, my heart hammered against my ribs. Reaching the German, I found him lying on his back, his eyes frozen into two gray marbles that reflected the starlight. The greatcoat wool was stiff as cardboard. I used my knife to hack through the frozen buttons, my blade slipping twice. But as I pulled the coat back to search his inner tunic for dry socks, my fingers brushed against a small, stiff leather wallet. Opening it, I shielded the starlight with my hand. Inside was a photograph of two young boys standing in front of a simple timber cottage. The older boy, perhaps 18, was the soldier lying dead before me. The younger brother, perhaps 15 or 16, who looked far too small for the oversized uniform he was wearing, was standing next to him, laughing. Tucked behind the photo was a folded, handwritten letter in German, addressed to their mother. A sudden flare ignited above the woods, casting a harsh, flickering green light over the crater. Pressing my face into the snow next to the corpse, I froze. My heart was pounding so hard. I had two choices. I could leave the wallet behind, take the socks, and crawl back immediately. Or I could take the time to fold the letter, tuck the photograph into my pocket, and carry the memory of this enemy's family back with me. The dead soldier lay before me, silent. He had a family, just like Pip, just like me. I grabbed the wallet and slid it into the inner pocket of my field jacket, right next to my own diary and the photograph of my home in Nebraska. Then, I quickly stripped the dry wool socks from his pack and wrapped the thick scarf around my neck. Dragging the heavy wool greatcoat with one hand, I began the long crawl back. We wrapped Pip's legs in the heavy greatcoat after pulling the dry socks onto his feet. Pip didn't ask where the clothes came from. He just closed his eyes, his breathing slowly settling. The next morning, a communications patrol from Company K moved down the trail behind us, trying to splice the cut telephone wires. The lead scout took 2 steps off the center of the trail to clear a fallen branch. There was a sharp, wooden snap. The explosion was small, a thud that threw up a cloud of dirt. The German shoe mines were wooden boxes filled with TNT, designed to bypass our metal detectors. The scout was thrown onto his back, his leg badly injured by the blast. His companions scrambled back, terrified of stepping on another box, while the patrol quickly carried the wounded man back toward the aid station. I pulled out my diary, writing near the photograph of my home. December 12th, 1944. I went out into the dark. I took a coat for Pip, but I also took a picture of 2 German boys from a dead man's pocket. One of them is dead here in the mud. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe to remind myself that we aren't the only ones who have mothers waiting for us to come home. We watched from our trench as the patrol disappeared from sight. The forest had become a maze where every path led to a slaughterhouse, and we were just waiting for our turn to walk it. My fingers brushed the wallet in my pocket. The letter, a silent wait. Imagining the farmhouse in Nebraska was becoming impossible, the memory fading behind the face of the dead soldier. We were no longer fighting for territory or flags. We were just fighting to keep our limbs attached and our chests moving for another hour. On the morning of December 14, the forest decided to kill us in earnest. The order came down from battalion at dawn, passed from hole to hole by shivering runners. The regiment was to advance through the draw and clear a series of reinforced German bunkers hidden in the dense pine woods near the Roar River. We checked our weapons, our stiff fingers fumbling with the safety catches. My carbine bolt was stiff, but it slid forward after I slammed it with the heel of my palm. Preacher was silent, his lips moving in a wordless prayer as his fingers traced the canvas cover of the Bible tucked into his belt. We climbed out of our holes, our boots sinking deep into the mud that had begun to soften under a light, wet snow. But before the whistle blew, Pip and I lay huddled behind a stack of frozen pine logs. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, broken piece of chocolate from a D-ration bar, half wrapped in grease-stained paper. It was hard as a stone, but he split it in 2 with his thumbs, handing me the larger half. "Here," Pip said, a tiny, rare spark of life in his eyes. "Happy early Christmas, Leo." We sucked on the bitter chocolate, letting it melt slowly in our mouths. Pip looked at the sky, then turned to me, his shoulders dropping as he did a pitch-perfect nasal imitation of our drill sergeant back at Fort Riley. "Private Brooks, if I see one speck of Nebraska dust on that belt buckle, I will personally make you dig a trench from here to Kansas with your bare teeth." The imitation was so sudden and so absurd in the gloomy draw of the Hurtgen that a short, genuine laugh escaped my lips. It was the first time my chest had felt light in days. Pip smiled, his shoulders shaking with silent laughter. For a brief second, we weren't scouts in a freezing German forest. We were just two boys from the plains, sharing a joke in the snow. Then the whistle blew, cold and sharp. The transition was instant. Pip grabbed me by the sleeve of my field jacket, the laughter vanishing from his face as if it had never existed. He held out a folded, damp sheet of paper, the letter he had been writing to his mother, along with a small, stubby lead pencil. "Here, keep it," Pip whispered, his voice cracking. "For my mother, if I just make sure she gets it." And the pencil, my granddad's. Looking at the folded paper, then at Pip's pale, worried face, I felt a sudden weight. I didn't want to take it. Taking a man's letters before an attack felt like acknowledging the worst before it happened, but the desperate need in his eyes left me no choice. I took the letter and the small lead pencil, sliding them into the pocket of my jacket, opposite the German wallet. "You'll give it to her yourself, Pip," I said, trying to sound firm. "Now check your safety and stay close to Mac." The forest was silent as we moved forward in a loose skirmish line. The only sound was the heavy crunch of our boots and the steady dripping of melted snow from the high branches. The twilight of the pines was thicker here, the trees growing so close together that we had to walk sideways in the narrow gaps. Every tree looked identical, a labyrinth of trunks and needles closing in behind us. Then the machine guns opened up. The rapid tearing cloth sound of an MG-42 cut through the trees, making my skin crawl. The rounds shredded the pine trunks around us, sending bark and wood splinters flying into our faces. We hit the dirt immediately, burying our faces in the wet needles, our hands clawing at the ground for cover. The bullets snapped through the air just inches above our helmets. "Mortars!" Sergeant Mack screamed from somewhere to my right. "Take cover! They're zeroing in." The German mortars joined the machine guns, targeting the high tree canopy. The tree bursts returned with a vengeance. The sky above us turned into an orange flash, followed by a series of sharp cracks that shook the ground. A massive pine trunk, split in two by a mortar shell, crashed down through the branches. The air turned black with cordite smoke and wood dust, choking our lungs. To my left, Preacher was pinned down behind a shallow dirt mound. A German machine gun on the ridge had zeroed in on his position, the bullets kicking up spouts of mud and cutting the brush around him. He was frozen, his BAR clutched to his chest, unable to move as the rounds chipped away at his cover. He had no way to escape. I stared at the spouts of dirt kicking up near Preacher's head. I wanted to raise my carbine, to slide forward and shoot, but a sudden icy wave of panic locked my limbs. My throat went dry, my chest tightening so hard I couldn't draw breath. I pressed my face into the dirt, my fingers clawing at the pine needles, my eyes shut tight. Every blast of the mortars above felt like it was detonating inside my skull. I was terrified. The noise, the smoke, the sudden realization of my own fragility paralyzed me. I couldn't move. I was just a boy hiding in the dirt, wishing the earth would swallow me whole. "Brooks, fire!" The lieutenant's voice screamed from somewhere behind, but the sound was distant. Preacher let out a low, desperate cry as a burst of bullets sliced the log right above his shoulder. The sound of his voice cut through the fog of my terror. I felt the stiff shape of Pip's letter and the broken pieces of his grandfather's pencil in my pocket. I couldn't stay in the dirt. If I didn't move, Preacher would die. Engaging the safety, I pushed myself up. I rested the barrel on a wet root, lined up the sights with the dark slit of the German bunker, and squeezed the trigger. I fired 5 rapid shots, the distraction working. The stream of tracer rounds instantly swung away from Preacher, chewing into the dirt mound in front of my face. Preacher threw himself forward, rolling behind a thick log to safety. He looked back at me, nodding once through the smoke, his face pale. But my victory was short-lived. A wet, choking gasp came from behind me. Sergeant Mack had been hit. A massive piece of shattered pine wood had struck him in the chest and shoulder, pinning him to the slush. He lay gasping for air, his hands pressed tightly against his shoulder, where a dark stain was spreading rapidly on the snow. He was struggling to breathe, his eyes wide with shock, looking directly at me through the branches. "Brooks!" the lieutenant screamed from the rear. "Hold the flank, the Krauts are pushing the left. If they turn the flank, the platoon is cut off. Fire your weapon." The conflict in my mind was absolute. I wanted to stay low and save myself. The fear of stepping out into that open field under the machine guns was paralyzing. "Damn it," I screamed, the curse lost in the roar of the shells. Crawling forward, the machine gun rounds snapped through the air above my back. Reaching Mac, my hands pressed against his torn jacket to slow the bleeding. "I got you, Sarge," I muttered, my voice shaking with terror and anger. "Damn it, hold on." Grabbing him under the arms, I struggled for purchase in the slippery mud. He was heavy, his coat soaked through. A mortar shell detonated close by, the blast throwing dirt over us. In my panic, I lost my grip, almost dropping Mac into the slush before scrambling to pull him behind a thick fallen tree, where Doc Carter had set up a temporary aid station. Doc went to work immediately, his hands applying pressure to Mac's shoulder. "Keep him steady, Leo. Hold his arms." Mac's cold hands clutched mine. His gasping was slowing, the panic in his eyes starting to fade into a dull glaze. But as I turned to look back for Pip, the world exploded. A heavy mortar shell hit the tree directly above Pip's foxhole. The blast was deafening, a white-hot flash that threw me against the log. The shock wave slammed into my chest, leaving a high-pitched, ringing silence in my ears. When the smoke cleared, I dragged myself up to look over the log. The foxhole was half buried in smoking dirt and splintered pine wood. Pip's M1 helmet lay in the mud, split down the center. A few feet away, a page from his letter home, the one he had been writing with his stubby pencil, was fluttering in the black slush, its edges singed by the blast. The lead pencil was snapped in two in the mud. Pip was gone, buried beneath the heavy debris of the pines. There was nothing left to save. "Retreat," the lieutenant's voice cut through the ringing in my ears, sounding distant. "Pull back to the ridge." Staring at the split helmet and the singed letter, my hands trembled. The boy from Nebraska who had cried because his feet were rotting was gone. Preacher grabbed me by the jacket, dragging me up. His face was covered in black soot, his eyes wide with worry. "We have to go, Leo, now." Dragging our boots through the blackened pines, we left the ruins and Pip behind. The forest had taken its toll, and it had paid us in iron and wood. We retreated through the pines, the snow falling softly to cover the tracks we left behind, as if the forest was trying to erase any memory of our struggle. When we finally reached the relative safety of the ridge, I sank into the cold ground, my chest heaving as I tried to draw breath. My hands were stained dark with grease and soil. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against the folded sheet of paper Pip had given me before the attack. The edges were damp, but the paper was whole. The pencil was still in my pocket, broken in two. The lead tip gone. I held the pieces in my palm, a hollow ache settling in my chest. I had promised to keep his letter safe, but the promise felt like a heavy burden now. I folded the paper, tucked it back next to the German wallet, and picked up my carbine. We were still in the trees. By December 17th, the trees finally set us free. We reached the west bank of the Rohr River near Düren, and the suffocating canopy of the Hürtgen Forest broke open into a flat, gray landscape of silt and flowing water. The pines were behind us now, their silhouettes rising like a wall against the horizon. But the open air did not bring relief. The silence of the riverbank felt heavier than the artillery, a vast, empty quiet. We dug temporary trenches in the earth of the bank, our bodies exhausted and our spirits hollowed out by the week we had left behind in the dark draw. We sat in the cold, staring blankly at the sky, our eyes red from the wind that swept across the open water. The previous night had been spent dragging the wounded back through a driving blizzard. We had constructed stretchers from pine branches and frayed canvas shelter halves, our fingers freezing to the wood as we carried the heavy, groaning men down the snow-choked draws. The road was lined with the burned-out hulls of Sherman tanks and abandoned trucks, half buried in the snow like ancient iron beasts. Nobody spoke during the retreat. The silence of the squad was absolute, a heavy, dead quiet. Only a few members of our squad remained. Sergeant Mack had survived the drag through the snow, evacuated to the rear with a thick collar of bandages around his shoulder and chest. Doc Carter said he would live, but his war was over. Preacher sat next to me in the bottom of our new trench, his Browning automatic rifle resting across his knees. He did not clean it. The barrel was caked with carbon, but he just stared at his hands, his fingers tracing the dry skin of his knuckles. His Bible, the small book wrapped in oilcloth that he had carried since Fort Meade, was gone, lost somewhere in the forest soil when the shells hit the canopy. He hadn't spoken since we left the trees. Sheltering in the earth, my knees pulled up to my chest, I tried to stop the cold that had become a permanent part of my body. My fingers were black with grease and dried clay, moving down a narrow draw during a morning patrol, trying to establish connection points with Company L. I headed toward the water. The snow here was thin, mixed with gray silt and dry brush. As I rounded a thick clump of dead brush, I stopped, my hand instantly going to the bolt of my carbine. In a shallow mortar crater near the water's edge, a figure was crouching. It was a German soldier, but he looked nothing like the veterans we had fought in the draw. He was a young German soldier, barely an adult, who looked far too young for the heavy gray coat that swallowed his thin frame. His helmet was tilted forward, almost covering his eyes. He was shivering, his body shaking in rapid tremors. A dark stain was spreading across the front of his tunic, the fabric stiff. He was weeping softly, a quiet, desperate sound. He was whispering the same word over and over into the cold air. Mutter, mutter. When he heard the crunch of my boots, he looked up. His face was a waxy blue, his lips dry. His eyes were wide, filled with the raw shock of a child waiting for the end. He did not reach for his rifle, which lay half buried in the silt, several feet away. Instead, he pulled his knees tighter to his chest, waiting. Raising my M1 Carbine, my finger rested on the trigger guard. My instructions were clear. Any enemy soldier found in no man's land was a threat, a potential observer who could alert their artillery. It would be easy to pull the trigger, a quick click that would end the threat. The anger in my chest was a hot coal, and this boy was wearing the same gray wool as the men who had fired the mortars that killed Pip. But as I watched his waxy skin and the tears freezing on his cheeks, I hesitated. Line by line, the training fell away. I lowered the barrel, letting the weapon hang by the sling. Kneeling in the loose sand of the crater, I reached forward. The boy shrank back, but he had no strength left to run. "Easy, kid," I muttered, my voice rough. "Easy." My fingers reached for my last package of sulfa powder and my last clean field dressing. I tore the paper package with my teeth, pouring the yellow powder onto the tear in his tunic, forcing it through the shredded wool onto the wound. The boy winced, but he didn't move. I wrapped the white bandage around his chest, tying the cotton straps. I wrapped the dark wool scarf I had taken from the frozen body in no man's land around the boy's neck to block the biting wind. As I tucked the wool under his chin, I pulled out the German leather wallet to look for extra dressings. The black and white photograph of the two brothers slipped out, landing in the snow between us. The boy's hand stopped. He stared at the photograph. With a trembling hand, he pointed at the older brother in the picture. "Hans," the boy whispered, his voice cracking as he looked up at me. "Hans. He was in our squad. He didn't come back from the Pine Ridge." Looking at the boy, then at the photo, the cold weight of the forest settled back into my chest. The boy in the crater wasn't the younger brother from the picture. He was just a comrade, a survivor of the same shattered company, who recognized the scarf and the face of the dead soldier in the snow. The younger brother was still in Bavaria, waiting for a letter that would never arrive from a brother who lay frozen in the pines, whose socks were now rotting on my feet. The connection was real, but there was no magic to it, just the simple, crushing arithmetic of the war. I didn't say anything. I didn't try to explain where Hans was. I just reached out, placed my hand on his shoulder for a brief second, and then turned away. Turning back up the slope, I headed to the trench. I sat down next to Preacher. I pulled Pip's snapped pencil from my pocket, aligning the two broken wooden pieces in my hands, trying to write on the damp paper of my diary. But the lead was gone, and looking at my dirty, grease-stained hands, I stopped. I placed the broken pencil in the earth at the bottom of the Foxhole, letting it slip from my fingers. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the two folded papers, Pip's letter to his mother in Nebraska and the German brother's letter I had taken from the wallet. I closed the diary. I realized I didn't want to write anymore. I looked at the two papers, folded them together and tucked them into the same inner pocket of my field jacket, pressed close against my chest. I didn't separate them. I didn't mark which was American and which was German. They were just two letters, written by two boys who had tried to survive, now resting in the same dark pocket while the snow began to cover the riverbank. Years later, back in Nebraska, I still look at those two letters. The ink has faded, and the paper is yellowed, but they remain side by side in my drawer. I never did write in that diary again. Some stories don't need to be written down. They are carried in the silence of the men who came home and the soil of the forest that kept the rest.